Tampa Bay is quietly writing its own story. And this is not a story that we are unfamiliar with. We have seen this for a decade, repeatedly. This Tampa Bay team, who has one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, who are supposedly on the move every minute of every day, going to some other place, some other city, some other stadium. They are 20 and 4 right now. That's an extraordinary record at any time of the year, to be 20 and 4, to be at the beginning of the season with a team that really, once again, we all ignored, essentially. We knew that we know Tampa Bay. We know that they'll figure out a way to be decent. I don't think anybody figured they'd be 5 games in front in the East, especially the way the rest of the East is playing, because the rest of the East it's the strongest division by far in baseball. But tell me, have you been able to analyze why Tampa Bay is this good and this good this often?
Right. Well, Bob, it's a great question, and one of the big questions that we're discussing throughout the league right now as to why they're so good consistently. A few reasons specific to this team. Wander Franco has been paid like a superstar. He was given one of the rare long-term deals that this franchise gives out, and now he's back to playing like a superstar. That's important. He is a separating type of a talent for the Rays. They also have some really good contributions from Randy Arozarena, who we saw was so dynamic during the WBC. Yandy Diaz is having an excellent year as well. Lowe, first base, has been very good. So there's
of course, they're 20 and 4. These guys have to be playing well.
But the point is too, Bob, that these players did not all necessarily arrive via the same pathway. They just make really good decisions. They trade the players at the right time. They trade for players at the right time.
So who is that?
The most important
Who's that making those decisions, John?
Eric Neander is their president of baseball operations. Peter Bendix is their GM, which these are new names from the original Andrew Friedman era.
Right.
Sure.
And they certainly have had others who have been a part of their organization that have gone on to be GMs elsewhere. Chaim Bloom with Boston, James Click just won a World Series with Houston last year. Of course, now with the Jays.
Right.
But what I would say is one of the most important words in the Tampa Bay Rays vocabulary is no. No. Because whenever the high-priced free agent comes up in discussion, with very rare exceptions, you look at Wander Franco was an internal sign, Evan Longoria, internal sign. The answer is almost always no. And so when you look at players who tend to get hurt or be less reliably healthy in their later years of baseball, or the big contract that really hamstrings an organization, they don't have one of those.
You mean like Kevin Kiermaier?
Well, Kiermaier, he was signed to a deal, and then you saw he, of course, moved on. And now he's batting ninth for the Jays and playing really good defense. And that's the kind of player he is. He was the guy that they were going to build around for a while. He was never going to be a 35 homer player, but that was not, in my judgment, that was not a bad contract. They paid a lot for someone who gave them a tremendous amount of leadership and also really good defense. And that's a player you would have liked for him to be more durable. I get it. But that was not, in my view, a bad contract. The part of their pitching staff that is really important to me, John and Bob, is what I would describe as optionability. They make really good decisions about how they develop their pitching. And then by not having too many veteran pitchers that maybe are struggling, you never are in a spot like the Jays would have been a year ago with Kikuchi, where you say, what do we do with him? We're paying him a bunch of money. He's not hurt. He's just struggling. What do we do? Well, in the Rays case, if someone's struggling, chances are they have between 0 and 3 years of major league service, and they could be sent to the minor leagues. And you just bring up somebody else. And the somebody else is probably about as good as the players you already had in the major leagues. They always have fresh arms. They never have to tax people to the point of ineffectiveness or stay with a struggling, expensive player, because generally speaking, they have no struggling, expensive players. They don't.
But
this week, Taj Bradley comes up. He's sent back down because of a roster crunch. Taj Bradley is one of their 5 best starting pitchers. he'll be back. That is the effectiveness of how they manage their 40-man roster.
Well, but what is true is that this has gone on for, as I said before, a decade. There have been multiple general managers, multiple managers. This must be a philosophy of the organization. Whatever the philosophy is that they use, whoever goes in there adopts that philosophy.
Right.
I'm sure it's mandated that they do that.
Right.
And what I think the rest of baseball should be trying to figure out, just like they figured out Billy Beane in Oakland, and Moneyball. What is the secret dough? What's the secret sauce? Because nobody else has it. Nobody else in baseball has the sauce that Tampa Bay has, and they do it on a budget that is almost at the bottom. Many times is at the bottom of Major League Baseball.
Well, I would say, Bob, that it's not just the Rays who have it. I do think that their best practices are the kind of pitchers they like, whether it's spin, the new innovation of the sweeper, whatever the new innovation in pitching is, the Rays are typically on it before everyone else.
They typically start it.
Or they started it. They started the trend. But Bob, let's think about this. Let's go back in recent times.
Yeah.
The reigning World Series champions, Houston. Where did their GM at the time come from? James Click. He came from Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
The previous team that won it, Atlanta, Alex Anthopoulos. But where did Alex work previous to Atlanta? He worked with the Dodgers, who are led by Andrew Friedman, who came from
Tampa
Bay. The 2020 team that won it all, Los Angeles Dodgers.
All right, I get that.
So there is the best practices of the Tampa Bay school, if you will, have been carried out through other organizations. And when you see a team like the Tigers, for example, when it came time for them to hire a new player personnel director in the realm of amateur scouting, where'd they go? Tampa Bay, and hired somebody from there. Because they're excellent. They very rarely miss in the draft. They don't always hit, but they very rarely miss big. They have done better in the draft than most other places. The Dodgers, under Andrew Friedman, have also done exceptionally well in the draft. You look at their homegrown talent that supplemented their superstar core. And that, by the way, is the difference. That was the World Series between the Dodgers and the Rays in 2020. The foundation was similar. The Rays had built their team in the way that they have been for more than a decade. The Dodgers with Andrew Friedman did the same thing, except they had superstars on top that they could afford that the Rays couldn't. And who was the guy that was out there making shoestring catches and amazing plays, running the bases, hitting for power? Mookie Betts. The Rays can't afford Mookie Betts. Exactly. And Clayton Kershaw was still there. The Rays can't afford him either. And so that's why, to be fair, we all love what the Rays do. They haven't won the World Series yet, because at some point in time, they're going to run up against a team that is structured in a very similar way to them, but that has superstars on top. And that's where at times they've struggled to beat some of the behemoths of baseball, because they're a superstar or two short in the end.
Yeah. Hey, quickly, can you explain the Brian Reynolds contract to me? I mean, we talk about a team that's always struggling and budgets and everything that's going on in Pittsburgh, and then they sign this guy to an 8-year deal for more than $100 million.
Interesting. And obviously it's proof, much like the Wander Franco deal with the Rays, that really you are, as a smaller market team, you're allowed one superstar contract. You just better be sure about who you're signing. And in this case, the Pirates have had Reynolds for a long time, ever since they, ironically, acquired him for Andrew McCutchen, now his teammate. But they were, my understanding was the Pirates offered him around $80 million in the fall. That wasn't close. The trade request was made. It wasn't fulfilled. And I credit both the Pirates and Brian Reynolds' camp for maintaining a professionalism such that once they showed up to spring training, it wasn't a whole bunch of animosity or a holdout. He just showed up, went to work. And then as the Pirates assessed where they were at with their club, they said, wait a minute, we've got some less expensive players who we believe can play. And so when the rest of your team is solid and inexpensive, like what the Pirates have right now, it allows you to spend selectively on your superstar. So spend that chip. They got somebody in Reynolds who's an excellent defender, versatile offensive player. So great signing, someone who, of course, we talked about a lot as being a fit for the Jays. But I think in general, he's really now a huge part of the Pirates' future.